Please welcome to the stage Rose Troche.
I have to say this is the first time. I was actually in Dublin with Christine Vachon when I found out that Jim Lyons had died, and I missed the memorial that was here. I was still away, so this is the first time that I saw him, and that was just so. I can't tell you what it's like to see.
Jim is the lead in the film, who was an actor in several movies and friends of many of us here tonight. He was also an editor who edited films like Poison and give me the Jim Cannon.
Oh God, he did Safe.
Safe.
He did
Velvet Goldmine, and he's David in the Desert, and yeah.
He was also in Poison. And it's just, wow.
Well, it's amazing to have the opportunity for me and I think for you to see this film on the screen and to share this. There's something very personal I felt about the screening even before we mentioned this and mentioned Jim, in the sense of, I don't know, I felt that the audience, we all felt kind of, at least I feel very lucky to be in this room with these people watching this movie now, and that there was some sort of experience which has a lot to do with, I think, how the film was made. It's much more sort of, it is a reverie that is, I think, much more controlled and constructed than I remember.
It's so funny because if I had the opportunity, it's very difficult to get to see this film, but and I hadn't seen it, and I was going to pursue seeing it before seeing it on the big screen, but I really wanted that moment of like, oh my God, there it is again. Ooh, and there was my clunky optic.
I was like, to red, was that you?
The circle thing and the slow-mo around the truck, and I feel like I also know why I chose this film, because experimental narratives and just this like non-linear, like the way cinematic language can be anything. And what really bothers me a little bit about this film is that Steve never made another film. This is Steve's only film. It was Michael Tye's only film. I mean, he toured with Jeff Buckley, and shortly after Jeff Buckley died, and I remember seeing Steve at the Velvet Goldmine screening, and I was so happy to see him because I was like, we got close during this movie, and he's just like, I'm not a filmmaker, and I look at this film and I'm like, are you kidding me? So that to me is just,
Well, two things I thought. One, when watching this film, you think a lot about the fact that this film came out of 60s cinema and 70s cinema, which is, the films we're watching now are coming from a different time. This film to me seemed all risk, which is sort of the opposite of about how narrative is maybe constructed. And these days, almost every shot is a risk. And whether it's going to work or not, you never know. It's only about the accumulation of the images. And then what you mentioned about Steve, I think it's interesting because I think, can you talk a little bit about '94 as a filmmaker in New York and what that was like for you and what the community was like and how you took the risk to actually make your first feature, Go Fish, at the same year?
Well, I think that, as I said, I think that we were all energized, I think that we were all hanging out, and I mean, I know you remember this, like, I remember, I swear that the scene with when the drag queen comes out shooting, I swear that was
Linda Simpson.
Yeah, Linda Simpson. I think that was Kareem and Steve's apartment. It
No,
wasn't? Because it looked like it was exactly that, and I remember hanging out like late night, Sandy Dubowski, myself, Steve, Kareem, who went on to do
Adam Sata and Suli in the Sky.
It was another wonderful filmmaker, and we were all sort of hanging out, like, I mean, in that way that was almost kind of like a salon a little bit, and talking about, as I said, supporting each other and talking about like what we wanted to do and sort of our visions and staying up late and drinking wine and what have you. It was the 90s. And I just remember leaving that apartment, which is very similar to that one there, and just hang out. And I also hung out with Steve in England, stayed with Jimmy Somerville, who was a good friend of his, and there was really a sense, I think Steve was the one person who, after this film, got a little bit killed by the critics. Craig, I don't know if you can speak to this a little bit more, but I feel like there were certain reviews that like he just couldn't bounce back from. He's like a sensitive guy, and I think of all, the people, a lot of us took a lot of blows, but really, went on to keep on making films. I took a lot of blows with Go Fish. Like, there are people who got personal, where you're just like, you do not know me. Why are you calling, if you're not a card-carrying member of the lesbian community, you will hate this movie. I'm like, okay, there's really no need to be so mean or like,